No, I don't think so. As long as he keeps his laptop turned back.
There we go.
I think.
We are live. Start recording, yep.
Look like I know what he's talking about.
Just a few more moments here and we will kick this off. Looks like we got our bugs worked out. Delta. Okay, 2 seconds, be right back. Hey, real quick, can I just get like 2 or 3 pizzas, just like a couple different few ones?
Yeah.
This back room? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're screaming out there. We heard you.
Yeah. You guys know you got food on the way
Got
then.
your little microphone on.
All right. There we go. You want to enable my secondary screen there, the eyeball. All right, so there we are. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. For those of you that may be streaming online, thanks for joining us as well. This is Security 101, Easy Targets, my first webinar. And I'm going to dive right into what you guys need to know for security in 2019. So, my goal by the end of this webinar is to make you aware of the imminent threat that's present, provide real-world scenarios and statistics to prove my purpose, enhance awareness and reduce your threat vulnerability, provide simple improvements to harden data security and lower risk. A brief history of us. Elite Networks was established in 2002. We are now Elite Networks LLC here in Canal Winchester. Since our inception, we've been basically a break-fix computer company. People would call us with problems, we come out and fix them. So throughout 15 years of doing this, a few years ago, it kind of dawned on us that we found clients continually in a catastrophic or disaster situation with all types of technology failures. So we decided to take a new approach with a new platform that allows us to make preventative actions on the machine to let us prevent problems rather than just waiting till a disaster strikes. So it proved to be tremendously beneficial not only for our clients, but the client's relationship with us because we're able to offer them a much higher level of support. And today we manage systems all across the entire nation. So first thing I'm going to say is do your research. Our stats here come from sources like Forbes, PC Mag, SolarWinds, McAfee, Symantec, Popular Mechanics. So this is information that's readily available. So if you don't believe in anything that I'm about to present to you, Google is your friend. It'll help you fortify what I'm saying here today. Any quote you see tagged with Elite Networks LLC is complete BS. However, they are still true. There's just no number data behind them. It's just kind of like what we see here at our office. So we use the hashtag #FactNotFear. I get called a fearmonger sometimes, saying I'm just trying to scare people into products or services. Well, I hate that label. I hate that title. So here we're going to give you the facts and nothing but the facts here. So the 4 dangers to small and medium business. These are mitigating these 4 risks, basically. If you don't, you're working with a deck of cards that's stacked against you, basically. So 75% of these problems are human factor related. Yeah, well, everybody's in that bin. One critical vulnerability is also one of the most easy to fix, and I'll tell you all about that. And knowing what you're up against is that first step. So congratulations on being here and taking that first step to better security. So the #1 risk is the user, the one who clicks things, commonly known as ID10Ts. If you don't know what that is, write it down. Responsible for 99% of PEBCAC issues.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
So,
Just anything. Just make them. Thank you. Just get them on there. Thank you. Responsible for 99% of PEBCAC issues. So I'll explain what a PEBCAC issue is here in a little bit. They've been referred to as the malware itself. Technically speaking, they don't know how to perform a defrag, let alone protect a PC from intruders, data loss, things like this. Bill Gates is known as saying the average user has the brain of a spider monkey. What's a spider monkey? That's a spider monkey. So the pseudo tech, this is a term I kind of made up here. It's the internal IT guy or admin that knows the most tech stuff. You're kind of a pseudo tech guy, but you're a little bit more advanced than most other pseudo techs I know, so I don't want to jab you too hard here. But this could be Harold in shipping because he installed your email. Or it could be Stacy, the front desk girl, because she knows how to Snapchat. So typically they know just enough to be dangerous. They have no clue about security. They're oblivious to the risks. And they put you in more harm when selling or fixing issues. Software support techs, I'm sorry guys, you are in the same category. Software support, if you ever worked with a software support provider of some sort, they're great at their software, getting you set up, handling issues with that software, with that database, but they're not properly trained on security. They are not, they're not keen on that type of thing, so they'll set you up in a very simple manner that is not necessarily the most secure way to go. Number 3 is the hacker, also known as the bad guy, black hat, scammers. We're kind of jumbling all these into one general group here. So this could be Roshinsky Vladimir. He's a professional hacker. He lives in his grandma's basement. He hangs out in underground chat rooms, and his favorite food is turnip juice. He's just trying to make a living, comrade, you see. He's just trying to make his money the best way he can. Or it could be Bang Ding Yao. He's also a professional hacker. He was sadly disowned by his father because he failed his final exam with a 93%. And he hangs out mostly at cyber cafes. His favorite food is squid, and he now scours the internet daily looking for victims. Number 4, the acts of God. This is the 4th thread. Also known as the Alpha and Omega, Allah, Creator, however you want to do it. He is a professional at everything. And he's responsible for 30% of data loss. Hardware failure, things just die, okay? Fire, flood, physical theft or destruction. He's also the writer of Murphy's Law. If it can, it will. We see that all the time in the tech world. So let's get some excuses out of here. I've heard them all. I don't need protection. 1 out of 3 unprotected devices are infected with some type of malware. So if you don't have the proper antivirus and systems on there, chances are 1 out of your 3 systems is infected with something. So again, you're betting with a deck of cards stacked against you. I just do email. That's a common misconception. 60% of malware is delivered via email. 30% of phishing emails are opened. That means someone's actually viewing it, just seeing what's in it. I just surf the web. Well, okay, are you making purchases? Are you entering credit card information? Are you taking payments? Are you using corporate resources like company websites? Are you banking on that system? All these open up risk to you, yourself, your identity, your company. It's too expensive. Well, how much is your reputation worth? You know, it takes 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it. I forget who does that quote. I need to find that. So just one attack can literally cost you thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the severity of it and what is stolen. I'm not an important enough target. Well, there's no discretion in the hacker world. They want to leverage any system they can to wage attacks on other systems. It's just another pawn in their scheme to control other systems. Your computer can even be sold for crime as a service, so it can host illegal, inappropriate, illicit sites, data without you even knowing it. And if you already have antivirus, well, that's good, but if you have a free antivirus that lacks important security features, consumer-grade antivirus can be disabled, malfunctioning, and typically the owner of that computer never knows it. So content filtering is also most important because that blocks bad things from getting in your computer to begin with, and I'll explain on this a little bit more. And it's not a part of most antivirus softwares. Wow, I'm going way too fast here. Let me back up. Okay. So this is a graph here of the most vulnerable operating systems. As you see, OS X actually has more vulnerabilities than Windows 10, believe it or not. But you see up at the top of that list, Android, everybody's got that phone in their pocket. That's the most unsecured device that you probably have and own. And the problem is most people bring these unsecured devices onto your network at work. So that opens up a huge threat vulnerability. And we'll get into that a little further. But this is one reason why it's so important to keep software up to date, is because they're continually finding problems, vulnerabilities with that software, and they're patching them every week. It's an ongoing thing. Also, SB 220 was recently passed by the state of Ohio. It's basically the Cyber Data Protection Act. And what does this mean? SB 220 means Ohio has finally recognized the impact of cybercrime. This is just the beginning of cyber law, and it does not impose or force any liability on any company. It does, however, limit liability for companies that are sued as a result of a data breach or security event. So if you have a reasonable protection level, that means standard procedures and protocols to protect systems, which does vary per industry, but you have a lesser chance of being sued if you do get breached or hacked or anything like that, if you can prove that you have these implementations in place. So non-government, you're going to have to conform to like NST, FRAM, CIS, ISO 2700, PCI compliance. If you're a governmental institution, you're going to be regulated by HIPAA, GLBA, FISMA, HITECH. And it also limits liability for companies that are sued as a result of a data breach. So that's really the big takeaway from SB 220, is that they're influencing people. Are saying if you do take proper precautions, you have less legal liability. Now again, this is not legal advice. This is simply tech advice. I'm not a lawyer or attorney, so I want to make sure that it's perfectly clear. So let's talk about some easy remedies.
You want me to just set these right here?
That's just fine, thank you. Can we get some plates and napkins over here, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's 6 practices for securing your systems. They are all necessary. And these are considered to be basic practices. They do not guarantee any level of protection. And Elite Networks is not to be held responsible for any user implementation about what I'm about to go over. These things do need done. If you feel that you're capable of doing that, go ahead, but we are not liable for anybody implementing these items here. So some of these recommendations will break things. They will break things unless you have proper prior consideration of what they're going to affect. And outline procedures intended for detecting vulnerabilities only. This isn't a cure-all or any type of things like that. This is basically to go in there to see if you're vulnerable to these types of threats. All right, so let's check out folder access. And I got a video coming up, but I don't think it wants to play correctly. Most folders share on the network. Let's say if you're sharing files across the network, those folders are typically shared with guest level access or everyone access. So if you had a software guy come in and install software, chances are he shared a folder. He shared it with everybody. So that means anybody hops on the network can go to that device, find all the files on it, start modifying, stealing information, corrupting it, whatever. So that's something that you definitely need to take a look at if you're sharing files on the network. What you need to do is disable the guest user. The guest user basically lets anonymous access onto that machine. And what you need to do is create specific users for file shares, so only certain people can get access to them. And I think, Terry, we got you pretty much set up with secure file sharing, but you'll be amazed about how many places I go to find out. Even the entire C drive in the machine. This is very typical where software providers will share the entire C drive just to make software work. But then again, that allows anybody on the network to get in that entire drive and just have their way with that. So remove everyone user group from all shared folders. And I think we zoom in on this. We need to assign both folder sharing and security permissions. So I don't know if you can see here, there's computer management. And if you click your start menu, type in computer, you should see computer management. Inside of that, if you have a pro version of Windows, you'll see users there. And you'll see all the users on your computer. You can see that guest account there. That icon with the little down arrow indicates that it's disabled. You always want that guest account disabled for starts. So if you open up the properties, that little checkbox right there, that should never be enabled. That's step number 1. And here's my video from yesterday that didn't want to play. I'm going to see if we can. So here we are at the front desk computer. This is the main POS system here. We see we go to network. So I'm going to skip that. Basically, that video right there shows me going into a restaurant, looking at their point of sale system, and seeing every system on their network shared with everyone access, basically. So here we are at the front desk computer. This is the main POS system here. We see we go to network, and we can see all the machines. Next step there, Chris. Thanks. Okay, looking at this here, default usernames and passwords here. So routers, network attached stories, webcams, DVRs, audio devices, VoIP phones, all these are configurable, and you can get access to them with default usernames and passwords. Let's say your router, for example, is probably 192.168.1.1. That's the IP address of that device. Every device on your network has an address, just like every house has an address. If you know what that address is, you can get into the device. Chances are, if it's never been set up properly, it's probably got a default username and password, typically admin with no password, admin with the password as password. And these are very easy to find. So you can actually go online to Google. You just Google the model number of the device plus default password. So example would be WRT54G as the model number, default password. And then you'll get the default password of that device. So you can essentially take control of it, modify settings, hack it, whatever you want to do. So this is one thing that's really overlooked on a lot of networks is the default usernames and passwords on all the devices. It's just another threat vector for people to come in and do harm. So literally millions of devices are vulnerable to this one very simple vulnerability. Content filtering. This is your laptop without content filtering. So allowing employees to go anywhere online is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. You're opening up a plethora of issues that can happen. So it's just one click away. You're just one click away from some kind of disaster happening, whether it be a click on an email, a website, whatever it is. One click can infect a computer and then therefore infect multiple computers. Content filtering drastically minimizes the risk of humans being online. Content filtering drastically minimizes the risk of humans being online. It blocks malicious websites, scams, inappropriate pages, games, social, etc. So not only does it protect you at like a malware type level, but also keeps employees more focused, keeping them off of social websites and gaming websites and downloading games and all the junkware that comes along with them. So just knocking that out and disallowing employees to do that makes them do that on their phone instead. That's their own device. They can do whatever they want with that. They shouldn't be screwing up your equipment. Let me silence my phone here. Yeah. I meant to actually turn this thing off. The internet decided to go down at my office right before I started this presentation, so all the calls are forwarding to my cell phone. Okay. So number 3 is fake tech support. This is something that's very, very popular anymore. And the thing is, employees must know who their actual support provider is. You have to establish policy. Policy is one of the best things you can do if you own a business. Establish it. Employees got to know who to actually talk to. What's the chain of command? Do I talk to Bob that called me from front desk tech support, whatever it might be? We help someone that's been scammed nearly every single week. And to develop on a story here that one of our clients that we've been pushing our managed services on for 6 months or so, been dragging their feet on it, not wanting to do it, not wanting to spend the money on it. What ended up happening was 6 a.m. one morning, someone called up the front desk, and there's some employee at the front desk, and they said, "Oh, hello, this is Ajmer with front desk support. We need to log into your reservation software to perform an update. Can you let me in through TeamViewer or whatnot?" Of course, the guy lets him on. Of course, he's got full administrator privileges, so he can do whatever he wants. So they let the hacker, the scammer, onto the system. They install a keylogger. If you don't know what a keylogger is, a keylogger literally logs every single key press on that keyboard. So they captured account passwords, their reservation software passwords, everything. Now, anyone that touched that machine and logged into it, they captured that information for 1 week. That went on there for 1 week without them even knowing it was there. So about a week later, they finally discovered their reservation software password. they started calling their clients that recently made reservations with them and saying, oh, there's a problem with your credit card number. To keep your reservation, we need to get your credit card number again. 5 of their customers got their credit card information scammed because that company did not take proper security measures. He was at risk of being sued 5 times, possibly even by his parent company, because they sent out a memo a month ago about, hey, these types of attacks are on the rise. And here again, policy, the employees didn't know, they let him on there, and then disaster happened. He got a pretty hefty bill from us that he didn't want to pay, and then we got him on managed services after that, because he understands the need for it. So, scammers use scare tactics and pressure to pressure users into accepting a paid support fix. Typically what it is, they'll hop on your computer, they'll show you all this technical jibber jabber that really isn't even a problem, just to kind of pressure you into saying there's a whole bunch of problems with the machine, we need to get fixed right away. Whether it be a pop-up on your computer or a phone call you get anonymously, these are rising at a very extreme level. Scammers will take control of systems, plant malware, steal account passwords, so on and so forth. There's just a number of things that they can do that are very bad. So use extreme caution and discretion when searching for support numbers. Like if you're trying to find Yahoo support or HP support, people are just going to Google and typing it in. And there's all these advertisements on, HP support, whatever it might be, but they're not affiliated with HP or whatever company you're trying to do with. They're all scam sites. So in the same fashion, they will get on your computer, tell you have all this stuff wrong with it, and then they'll want to get a credit card number to fix it. But lo and behold, they'll keep billing you that $200 or $300 every single time they can until you realize, hey, we need to shut the card off. So this is an example of one of those, a pop-up that sometimes happens. And these aren't necessarily viruses. These are just more like pop-ups that take over the whole screen. Rather popular nowadays. But they'll tell you there's some kind of thing wrong, the virus, or maybe there's inappropriate material on the computer, or the FBI is after, or whatever. Maybe even have your webcam on there and showing you a picture of it and telling you that it's sending this data to somewhere. They'll use all types of pressure tactics to get you in. Number 2 threat is email, right where it should be. So you got to look at the sender or recipient to find out, do you recognize them? You need to mouse over links to reveal their actual destination. So when actually you go to click a link from an email, put the mouse over top of that link, hold it there, and another little box will pop up and say the actual web address of where you're going. So if it differs from what you're trying to click, goes to some other crazy site, obviously that's a scam. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. So look for spelling and grammar errors. Scam emails typically look strange. There's just something off. Something Denise pointed out here is that sometimes the web address you click will be a misspelling. Like there'll be 2 M's instead of 1, or 2 O's, or a 0 instead of an O. So be really attentive to that, because there's a lot of ways that they are scamming you guys. Just by simple little changes in the web address. So here again, content filtering helps block harmful email links and attachments. So if you get an email for something, you click the link, and it's something that's known, that's going to be blocked automatically. So you're not going to log into Gmail and get your Gmail credentials stolen or download virus or whatever. Continuing on email scams, ways to identify it. We got 6 slides here for this. So, there you go. So you can see here we have an alarming amount saying there's $2,373 coming from my account. It's a scare tactic. And you'll see that there's a bogus website. It's actually pointing me over to some site. It ends in .in. Now, if it doesn't end in .com or .net, something that's popular, chances are that server is somewhere across the globe, and you don't want to click it. Here's another one. We have look for other unrecognized addresses, like, I don't know, Matthew Sewell or Michelle, whoever. These are all bogus. There's also a bogus website there. Just be mindful. Here's another scare tactic, call to action. Someone tampered with my recovery settings. Oh no, I better fix that. Click this link. Oh, we'll look at the reply link. It's from Microsoft Mail Team, but as you can see, it's pointing to at yvesrd.officell.com. Not legit. So here's another one. We've got a bogus reply address, dimensional.com.co. After the .com, there's .co. It doesn't matter what's before that. It's that last dot. Dot what? So .co is not a .com address. AT&T bill is ready. Okay, this is relevant. I have AT&T. That's a bogus confirmation number to make it look legit. And there's a shocking amount. It's a scare tactic. $977. What did I leave my phone on streaming? That cost me $977. I better take care of this. But oh wait, this points to mythingsofinterest.com, a bogus website. You have 6 delayed emails, another scare tactic. You'll see the bogus address up top. The call to action scare tactic. There's action required. As you'll see again, bogus website address. A bunch of gibberish. Another bogus reply address on this one. Note the .com.ar. That's exactly what I'm talking about. They'll make it look like a .com address, but then they'll put .ar, .ru, .whatever after it. Another scare tactic amount is like, new invoice from Kristen. Okay, well, that's seemingly legit. Well, $662. What did I do for that? So go here to e-invoice connect. Well, that's yarnbar.com.ua, whatever that is. And there's reassurance here at the bottom that says if the above link doesn't work, try this alternate one. But as you can see, they're all junk. So let's talk about admin accounts, the #1 vulnerability in your network. Basically, they can do whatever they want. Any everyday user should not be allowed to install programs, modify system, change settings, break systems. Any user that sits down on a computer is an administrator by default, unless you go in and change those settings. I'm going to say it again. Any user that sits down at a computer is a full-blown administrator, unless you go in there and make the changes yourself. It is the #1 device-level vulnerability we see in most businesses. Most user tasks don't require administrative privileges. Rarely. It's only when you install software, want to make a change, or install malware or whatever. Everyday users should not be administrators. And this can eliminate countless PEBCAC errors. So what's a PEBCAC error? This is PEBCAC. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. Continuing on admin's accounts, you got to put a stop to it now. So you got to create a new administrator account with password. So here in computer management again, we go to our users group. We can add a new employee or add a new administrator. But you'll see under member of, that's the important part. Under the employee we have highlighted here, employee properties, you'll see that it's member of administrators and users. Sometimes it'll just be users. Sometimes it'll just be administrators. Now, if they are a member of administrators, remove them from administrators and add them to the users group. Anybody that sits down on a computer to access it should just be a user only. You need to set up yourself with an admin account so you have full control over that computer. With our managed services, when we onboard you, we already do this automatically. We lock down your systems. We create you an admin account. We create us an admin account. And we make sure all your employees are restricted as far as what they can do on a computer. And even if you don't have employees, even yourself working your computer day to day, don't work on an admin account. It opens up multiple issues. So create a new admin account, and then your user that you use every day, set it as just a user only. And I can help you guys out with that. Available in computer management, there you go. In Windows 10, if you don't have a Pro Edition, you have to do it through settings. So you click the start menu and then the little gear. You go to accounts, and then you'll see your accounts listed there. It's a bit of a process on Windows 10. If you have Pro Edition, it's much, much easier. And again, if you have questions on this one, anything, I can be sure to help you out on that. So here again, remove from the administrators group and add to the users group. So what you've learned so far, you've learned that you're an easy target, and you must protect now. Hackers and malware are real and are increasing alarmingly. Gaping vulnerabilities currently exist in your network, and that no system is unimportant enough for a hacker to ignore. Humans prove to be the biggest threat to systems, and internal or pseudo attacks are setting you guys up for disaster. So what you need to cover your bases. You need antivirus with content filtering. You need automated patching and updating to keep the machines up to date. You need not only a local backup to a hard drive, but you need a cloud software too to get that data out of there, get that off-site somewhere. If you have backing up to a flash drive or an external hard drive, those are great. However, that does not protect you against fire, flood, theft, major acts of hardware failure, that kind of thing. You need secure passwords, but not just passwords, you need passphrases. Passwords are too simple. We'll get into this a little bit deeper here. And you also need a company tech policy. Write it down, make sure your employees know it, who to talk to, who not to talk to, what's the proper procedure for tech support. If you're on our pro services, you can make that first call our office, because that call doesn't cost you anything if you're on our pro services. So you can make that policy. So going the extra mile, the online backup. So Nordic Backup is a great software used for cloud backup for quite a few different reasons. Password management. So there's a software called KeePass, K-E-E-P-A-S-S, which is a great open source free software. It allows you to have all your passwords in a file that's password protected. It's encrypted. So you can store all your passwords on there and only have one password to access them all. That is what they call a local solution. It's not a paid service, it's open source software, it's free. If you want something maybe a bit easier to set up and manage, LastPass is an online one. So you go to lastpass.com, you sign up for their service, and basically you log into their site and you can start dumping all your passwords into this web-based account. And it's secure, it's encrypted, but rather than having the same password for all your accounts or passwords you can't remember, LastPass or KeePass is a great way to manage all those passwords. You need periodic audits of network infrastructure, so maybe once a year or so, have someone physically come in to make sure that at the physical end, that machines are plugged up to battery backups on hard drives, that kind of thing, making sure that systems are protected, that antivirus is functioning, things like that. You need to segment your networks. So if you have one network at your organization or wherever it might be, and you're allowing everybody onto that network, you are setting yourself up for a disaster like I almost did there. What you need to do is have a private network for office equipment and a guest network for employee cell phones or laptops they bring in or customers and things like that. You should not let any device on your network that's not a part of your group that you manage and control, because there's too much risk associated. You saw that Android was the most vulnerable device. How many Android devices do people bring into work and connect to the Wi-Fi? And every single one of them has unknown software on it. Who knows what they've been doing on that phone or what's lurking on that phone. A lot of software also is very intrusive. So that app they install that requires Wi-Fi privileges, some of those will actually scope your network and find out what equipment's on there and does God knows what with that data. So when you hit accept on that phone, you're accepting those license terms. Another thing you can do is get a security appliance. This is something like a SonicWall, Firebox, something like that. And it's like an antivirus subscription. You pay a subscription for it, but instead of protecting you at like the device level, this scans traffic going in and out of your network for malicious software, for intrusions. It can block botnets. So with security, it's all about layered protection. It's not just antivirus. It's not just patching. It's having multiple layers of protection in place, making it harder for people to get into systems. So a security appliance is a great way to harden security even further by being able to manage that network traffic coming in and out of your network. So online backup, it's your company's Hail Mary. Carbonite's good, but not what we recommend. We recommend Nordic Backup because it has better tiered security, better reporting, and better support. Their support is the best. It will be your hero in that all else fails scenario. So I'll tell you a story about one of my clients that forcefully had all their computer equipment removed. Every single piece, their external hard drive, their computers, their backups, everything gone. And so he went and bought a bunch of new computers, and we came in there, we got on Nordic Backup, we pulled his ACT database back to his system here within about an hour. And I'll never forget it, because when he pulled up his ACT database and he started scrolling through all of his stuff, he jumped up, turned around, and went, "Whoa!" Just gave me the biggest high five I ever had in my life. Made my hand sting for a minute afterwards. I mean, he just kept screaming and hooting. I was like, for a nerd, that was a moment. That was like, that was awesome. Like, it really made me feel good knowing that that really came in there and saved the day. So you got to make sure all your desired directories are selected in a backup. So by default, if you're using Carbonite or Mozy, something like that, it's going to back up your user documents, your desktop, maybe your Outlook by default. But if there's other folders that you need protected, you actually have to specify those. One of my clients that went with Carbonite backup, he set himself up years ago, had a system die completely, and he went to recover his data, only to discover that that folder on the C drive wasn't checked, and that data was never backed up, ever. So he lost it all. Literally gigabytes and gigabytes worth of information he needed was gone. So online backup is not necessarily a replacement for a local hard drive backup. The rule of thumb is if your data doesn't exist in 3 places, it doesn't exist. So that means on your local computer, on an external hard drive backup, and in the cloud somewhere. Because 2 things can fail at a time. We had a situation with a client where they had a RAID array, which is 2 hard drives mirroring, and a backup as well. Both hard drives died physically. They would not spin up. And additionally, whatever happened also corrupted the external hard drive. So we had a terrible time getting data back from that. But luckily, we had Nordic Backup, and we pulled all the rest of the data from Nordic Backup. It saved the day. So let's talk about account management. It's something that really users don't put that much effort into, and it's something that really needs focus. You got to create complex passwords using numbers and symbols. You can kind of see here I've got 5 as the letter S, I as an exclamation point, 3 as an E. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. This is something called leet speak, where they put symbols and numbers to replace letters. Now, the rule of thumb is that you don't want passwords, I think I got it here, like a dog123. It's a dictionary word followed by a string of numbers. So a dictionary word is any number you can go through, or any word you can go through dictionary and find. And so dog is in the dictionary. D0G is not a dictionary word. You can't find it in the dictionary. Makes it much harder to crack. So instead of just dog123, try to think of a phrase. I walk my dog daily. Okay, pretty easy to remember. And just by switching around a couple of the letters, which you can remember fairly easy, like the I is an exclamation point, the at is an A. You know, it's pretty simple, and you'll get it the more you work with it. But that password, I walk my dog daily, is 10,000 times more secure than dog123. If you have an 8-character password, like number with a word with a number, it can be cracked in as little as 2 hours on today's technology. So that's something to really put in. Passwords should be at least 10 to 12 characters. Don't use the password I just gave you, please. It's been sent everywhere on the internet. KeePass, of course, is a great free local password manager, as I talked about. LastPass is an online one, it's a paid website password manager. LastPass is probably easier to set up, but you do pay a monthly fee for that. It's like $9 a month, something like that. And the information is stored online as opposed to KeePass, where you have the file and it's on your system, which is what we prefer. Don't share any other account with your email password. Your email password should be completely separate of any other account you have, because if someone gains access to your email account, they're going to try that password on Facebook, on Yahoo Mail, on Gmail, whatever else associated account they can associate with. So you got to keep that email password separate from all others. Don't save sign-on information for auto login. So like when you log into a website, it may pop up, do you want to save this information so you don't have to log on? It's not a good practice. That's stored inside the browser. Of course, it is encrypted, but it's stored inside the browser, which is what you're using to browse the internet with. So if that browser gets compromised, those passwords also have the potential to become compromised. I don't like doing that. Don't leave passwords taped to the monitor, the PC desk, or whatever. Really, passwords are more so designed for the virtual threat, keeping hackers and third parties out of it. But doesn't mean that that disgruntled employee, the person that steals your laptop, opens it up and finds a Post-it note with the password on it, you might as well not even have a password on it. Make sure recovery numbers and emails are correct. So every account that you have, Gmail, Yahoo, your online web account, whatever it is, typically you'll have a recovery email address in that, or a recovery number. You want to have as many of those options filled out as possible. So in your account settings, whether it be for Gmail or whatever, you'll be able to set up a recovery email address. And that should be a different email address. So if you're in your Gmail and you're setting this up, make your alternate email address a Yahoo address or maybe your .com address. So that way, if that account gets hacked or compromised, you'll be able to recover that account because it's going to send you authentication information to the alternate email. So make sure you have recovery numbers and email set up on all your accounts. Another one is two-factor authentication, 2FA. It's something that's coming down the pipe. It's going to be required on most sites, I feel, in the future before facial recognition and all that biometrics really gets here. 2FA is basically when you go to log into your Google, it's going to send you a code on your phone that also you have to plug in after you plug in the password. So it basically verifies that you are the person logging into that account. Harden security 10 times over just using a password. So don't forget, treat your passwords like underwear. Never share them with anyone. Change them regularly and keep them off your desk. Not good practice. So going the extra mile, you got to understand the difference between domain host, web host, email host, and other hosts. So your most important host, I feel, is your domain host. So GoDaddy's a good one. 1&1, there's 2 cows, but the domain is basically where your .com address lies. So elitenetworks.us or elitenetworks.llc.com, that's our domain host. So that's pretty much the keys to the gate. If someone compromises that domain, you lose your email, you lose your website address, your reputation suffers. You have to get a new email address. So all these people with your existing email address aren't going to be able to reach you anymore. They could potentially use that domain to spoof emails as you and cause a whole lot of trouble for you. Your web host is actually where your website is hosted. So like Aunt Deanna's Basket, that's on a web host. Now, your domain host and your web host can be the same. Sometimes they are not. Even your email host can be on the same one, like GoDaddy does domain, web, and email hosting. But you got to understand that domain host is not necessarily your web host, is not necessarily your email host. These are 3 separate functions of your website or your email technologies. This is something very critical for you guys. Verify your domain registration information. You can go to www.whois.net. Whois.net. Type in your domain name, elitenetworks.us, Aunt Deanna's Basket, whatever, and it'll tell you the registration information on that. Make sure that information is correct. If it's private, it may not show it at all. You probably want to investigate that to make sure that is correct. So if you log into your GoDaddy, what they call your domain registrar, make sure you can go in there and set all that information as far as like the contact number, your email address, so on and so forth. Very important if you have a .com or .net domain name. Registered email address should not be domain email address. So this has to do with your domain registration. If your domain is elitenetworks.us, and my email address is at elitenetworks.us, I don't want to use that email address as my registration email for the domain, because if I lose that domain, I lose that email address. So you want that to be something else like Google or Yahoo. So that way, if your domain does get hacked or the password gets cracked on it, whatever, they're going to send an email to that alternate email address saying, hey, we need to get your account back. Here's what you need to do. If it's your .com address or the same address as you're trying to get back, you may not have access to that anymore because they may have blocked you out of it. So make sure that registration email is not the same as your website domain. Here we go. So like our elitenetworks.us is registered as gmail.com as our contact information because it's obviously a separate email address. And remember your renewal dates. Beware of domain swipers. We've had a few clients throughout the past few years weren't up to date on when their domain was going to renew. It expired, and then some swiper came in and bought it out from underneath them, and they lost their website, they lost their email address, they had to start all over again. It is a process to get it back, and you can't always get it back. A lot of times these people will swipe your email or your domain, and then they'll want $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for you to get that domain back. They'll sell it back to you. It is a racket. So remember your renewal dates, very important. Here's what you got to get rid of. You got to get rid of obsolete think. It's your inevitable demise. Internet Explorer. If you're using the blue E Internet Explorer, stop it. Even if it's Microsoft Edge, that's going out in the next version anyway. They canned Edge as well, I believe. Internet Explorer, though, it's the light blue E. Some websites require that you use Internet Explorer because it's what it's programmed for, like if there's a special plugin or applet. But if that is the case, if you have to use Internet Explorer for a certain site, use it just for that site. Don't use it for any other site. Use Chrome or Firefox. I prefer Chrome. I think they're one of the best for staying on top of security updates. It's one of the lightest, fastest browsers out there, minus their level of intrusion on you. But I do prefer Google Chrome over all of their browsers. Remote desktop. If you are using remote desktop to get into systems from outside the office, just directly remote desktop, it's bad. You really can't do that. That opens you up to a plethora of problems. So what you need to do is get a VPN or an SSL-based remote software like our managed services. That sets up a secure communication, encrypted between the 2 points, rather than remote desktop, which is just literally sending remote desktop traffic across the internet unencrypted. So that means what they call a man-in-the-middle attack. Someone could see that those packets flying through the internet and capture that data that's on the screen, or be able to log into the machine, take control of the session, whatever have you. Unnecessary applications. So if you go to your control panel and under programs and features, you'll see a whole bunch of programs listed there. I've seen some that are in Japanese writing, some that say remote whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of these applications that don't need to be there. Chances are they're running in the background. They're slowing down your computer. More importantly, they're opening up threat vectors because that software is probably very old and it's got known issues and bugs in it that can be compromised. So if you can, go through there, wipe out any of those unnecessary applications. Same thing goes for services. Services, you go to Start menu, type in services.msc. Hit enter, it's going to bring up all the services that are running on your computer. Now this is something for advanced users here, but you can disable a lot of services that are running that don't need to be running, that also open up vulnerabilities. Windows 10 has a ton of bloat. Windows 10 talks 10,000 times a day to Microsoft. So what we do, there's a procedure where we can actually eliminate a lot of the bloatware in Windows, shut off phone home services, things like that. So we can cut that in half. So Microsoft, your computer will only talk to Microsoft 5,000 times a day instead of 10,000. It can reduce your internet bill if you're paying per gigabyte. It can alleviate traffic on the network. It's going to make your computer faster. It's better all around to get rid of that Windows 10 bloat if you can. And at this point, you may be feeling kind of overwhelmed. And we don't blame you. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do to be handled by yourself, especially if you're not tech savvy, and especially if you don't have the time. Who has the time to do all this and work on their computers like this and do all this? No one does, right? Well, you might. You're retired. You don't matter. So what can you do in this point? What can you do? That's the question. So we have the solution. It is called Managed Services. It's a turnkey solution for your business. And you may know you depend on your network. Your network depends on us. We offer antivirus with content filtering, updates and patches, backup and recovery, maintenance and support. We do the account lockdown, so we make sure that administrative users are there and that everyday users are not administrators. We do secure remote access, so you can, if you're paying for LogMeIn or TeamViewer or any of those other softwares, what you're paying for that is almost the same price as managed services for that machine. So not only do you get the remote access, but you get all the other benefits of managed services, including proper security. And if you're using remote software without proper security, that's definitely something you want to look at. We'll offer advanced monitoring, so it's actually popping open the hood underneath that computer to find out what's going on in the event log, what's the health status, what's the performance status. So a lot of the things we can find out that we wouldn't normally be able to about what's going on inside the computer. We also provide monthly router updates. If your router hasn't been updated ever, which it probably hasn't, it contains critical vulnerabilities that need patched. There are updates that have been released, especially a handful of them here in the last couple years. They're critical vulnerabilities that let people onto that router to control your network, your entire network. So you need to get that router updated if you haven't. If it doesn't have an up-to-date firmware available, you need to replace it outright. It's one of the biggest overlooked vulnerabilities in most networks. That router is the gateway to the internet. He is the doorkeeper, and if that doorkeeper has holes in it, things are going to get through. You get free service and support. So with our pro service, whether it be a phone call, remote service, or something we actually have to physically come outside and fix, that's all covered under this plan. You get phone, remote, on-site. It drastically reduces physical visits to your facility. And remote manage and protect your system. So not only do we have remote access to the system to where you have a problem, we can help you out right then and there just by giving us a call, but it also lets you get access to your system securely, remotely, to do work, to check up on systems, whatever have you. There's no contract. We do month-to-month plans. It's priority local support, which means we don't outsource our support to anyone else. It's all locally in-house with Elite Networks, and you do have priority over other non-pro customers. If you want to do a 12-month term, you get 1 month free. And of course, it's a tax deduction. Who doesn't like tax deductions, right? So not only does this protect you from the things that's going to cost you money, it's going to save you money by being a tax deduction as well. So congratulations, this is the end of the seminar here. You are now aware of the imminent threat that is present. We reviewed scenarios and stats to prove the purpose of this webinar. You know that what you must do to reduce your threat vulnerability now. And you have simple techniques to harden security and lower risk. So now you understand what you have to do today to protect tomorrow. Thank you for joining me for Security 101, Easy Targets. I'm Noah with Elite Networks. Appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you.
Very informative. Yay. Want my testimonial?
I'll take testimonials, yes. Do we have any questions about any of this? Anything that anyone would want to bring up?
I have, well, you know, I have two Macs, an iMac, and then I have the MacBook, but I also have a PC because of the QuickBooks I have to have.
Mm-hmm.
And you have security on through my router, I guess, on the back of my PC. What does that do with, because everything is on the network. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if my network went down, I'd be out of business. That would be it. I'd be,
Well, you're one of the few people that actually understand that.
yeah.
So I'll have to take a look at your plan and see what you're actually covered over. But it depends on if we're just covering that computer, if we're covering the router as well, or something like that. We may want to have a talk about that and just make sure that we have you covered.
I upgraded my router with AT&T.
Okay.
So,
Now, if you're using like an internet-provided router, those are typically handled by the internet provider. But if you have a secondary router like a Linksys or Cisco or Asus, it's going to be like a secondary box altogether. That's the device that really needs updated. The AT&T devices and Spectrum, those are all handled by them, and we really can't update those at all. They handle all that. But yeah, talk to me about that. We'll make sure that we have you covered.
you know, because when Drew came over the last time, for some reason my printer fell off the network. I didn't knock it off, it just wouldn't work. So he came over and fixed it for me.
Any other questions? Testimonials?
I have his managed services. He's kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Yep.
And when
Yep.
if I have a question, I can call, and somebody in the office will help me.
Right.
And I got one of my printers knocked off, and he got me set back up.
Right back
with
in,
it.
yep.
I used to try to figure it out myself. Sometimes I'd do it and I said, oh, it's not worth the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth the
Right. I
time.
mean, how easy is it to pick up a phone, have a tech hop in right there and then and help you out? I mean, we all need support. We all need help with computers, and just having the availability to call someone and handle the issue. I've had people spend 5 hours on a problem because they didn't want to give us a call. It's like, dude, we could have fixed that in 30 minutes. And he spent 5 hours, trying to resolve something we were able to right away. So.
And my email did get hacked, and he took care of it.
Yep.
That's the plus of this service.
Yep. So our managed services covers most things like on the computer end, things that are like we're talking about the domain and email security. Those are things kind of handled outside of our scope for the managed services, but that's still things that we can help you with, and you really need to make sure that you have that information accounted for, locked down, you have management of it, because if you don't, there's probably going to be some day when some event's going to happen that's going to make you wish that you took action on that sooner. We see it all the time. I could give you story after story about client. We walk in and say, hey, your stuff is messed up, you have no security, you're very vulnerable and exposed. We give them the plan, they drag their feet. 6 months later, they get a very bad situation that happened. One in particular, they had about maybe a dozen or two systems, had no antivirus on the machines, they're all administrator. Well, 6 months later, after proposing managed service and hitting them up just about every week for it, they call us up, said 6 out of the 12 computers got infected with ransomware. So it got on one computer and then spread throughout the network and locked down 6 companies. They ended up selling the business about 3 or 4 months later to another company because I think that they lost too much stuff. So it happens. So this is what this whole thing's about, is bringing the awareness out there that these events are happening and you guys got to take measures to protect against them.
I know I have 3, 4 Gmail addresses because I use them for testing when I'm doing email send-outs and stuff. But how, and they're just like, they're on my phone. I don't have them on my computer because I don't trust what happens. But what happens if you just have your Google account and you have the app? It keeps asking me to download the app, and I refuse to do it because I'm afraid of the app.
Well, the app's going to give you a lot more functionality probably, but
I do it the hard way all the time.
yeah,
That's my whole life.
that's kind of a thing where you almost have to do it the hard way if you have that kind of accounts, yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen when I get Alzheimer's or dementia, because I'm not going to remember all this.
That's why you need a password manager. Yeah, KeyPass.
I use Dash.
You just got to remember that one password, so maybe tape it underneath the keyboard or whatever you do with it. All right, any other questions? We're going to wrap this up here. Thanks again for coming out. I really appreciate you guys coming out here and supporting me. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.